Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, as the world gradually is accepting a new way of financial advancement and transaction, Nigeria seems to have positioned itself to embrace the new trend as it is set. Actually, it has already launched the eNaira. Now, today on the program, we will be looking at the effects of this move and how it will affect the economy as well as how it will aid the full adoption of the e-currency. The Apex Bank had postponed the unveiling of the eNaira on October the 1st, citing key activities lined up for the country's 61st independence anniversary. But today it rolled out two applications, the eNaira Speed Wallet and eNaira Merchant Wallets on the Google and Apple stores. For joining us to dig deep into the workings of the e-currency, we have joining us from our Abuja studio, Dayo Ayeni. He is a digital entrepreneur. It's a pleasure to have you today on the program, Dayo. Well, Dayo, if you can hear me, just let's take a look at how this is going to work. Do we have the technological infrastructure to support the launch of this?
Okay, fantastic. I will tell you that we have the infrastructure, we have the power, we have the manpower, we have the support of the government that is necessary to make this happen. I happened to be in some of the preview meetings during the preparation for this whole process, and I will tell you part of why I'm in Abuja sitting down to have this conversation today is to see how this implementation will go very well. Now, some of the things I will tell you for free is that we have the government's infrastructure at the Apex Bank level that will make it work. We also have I think, the welcoming environment in terms of Nigerians looking forward to what the CBN or how it will work out. And then if you look at some of the banks, the bank applications currently, they are currently telling you to update, and then you find an eNaira wallet on your application already set. They are good to go on many of the bank applications. So I want to say for free today that it's something that we should all start watching out for. It's something we should start working towards, and we're able to get the desired results as at when due. So I think we're ready, and the world is watching, and this can't be a failure. So we'll launch by Monday. Everybody will be able to download what they need to download, and then we'll move forward from there.
Talking about downloads, I was actually, checking just before, we got on air. I saw the two products that were launched. I think I mentioned them earlier on. It is
the merchant and the speed.
Indeed. So what's the difference between the two?
So one primarily deals with when you're doing transactions in terms of retails and all of that. And then there is one that will work like a normal bank account kind of thing, where you can hold money, you can keep money in your wallet, and all of that goes from there.
I mean,
While
we're a
the one
bit.
for merchant is primarily for business people.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so you know how maybe you have a merchant side of an e-commerce store, something like that.
All right. So one of the things that we've been told, like now one of the, let's begin to look at the benefits, of this. Now we understand that Nigeria's GDP would, have an increase by $29 billion. I mean, so there are a lot of benefits: increased cross-border trade, accelerated financial inclusion, cheaper and faster remittance inflows, easier targeted social interventions, improvements in monetary policy effectiveness, payment systems efficiency, and tax collection. But one of the ones that, is pretty much, catching my attention is the easier targeted social interventions. As we've noticed, in over the past years with the social interventions we've had, it has always been cash delivery of money, over the table, so to speak now. And as it is now, a lot of people are yet to be banked. So if this is going to ensure, an easier targeted social interventions, how is that going to work?
Okay, so for people who don't have a registered bank account, the way it will work for them, how it would affect the grassroots directly, and we'll be able to do our social intervention directly, we discovered that we have a lot of people who have registered phone numbers that they can use to open accounts at this level. So it makes it easy. Once you have a phone number, you can also have access to eNaira. It's just that you may not be able to do more than the 20,000 Naira cumulatively at each transaction, and then automatically your data have been captured because you registered your SIM card under the NIMC program. So some of your data is already being accessed using that channel. So the phone number becomes the key element. A SIM card becomes a key element. So when we go for these social intervention programs at the grassroots level, all we need to have there is people who have phone numbers, and then the USSD can also work seamlessly using that whole technology. So you don't need to have the app download, you don't need a bank account for you to be able to access the eNaira system. So that's why the social intervention structure is very paramount in this whole process. So we have a lot of unbanked people. I remember it took my mom several years for her to open a bank account because she didn't really see a need for it. My dad was one primarily doing banking for a long time. And, you know, because of the structure they run, my mom didn't really need one. But at this point now, if you go to my village or go deeper into the rural places where all they can access is some sort of internet, the phone network where there is a mast and they can just access SIMs, then they can be onboarded for the eNaira, and then we can send remittance to them. You can send money to your dad, your uncles, your aunties, and all of that at that primary level because they have a SIM card that's captured up their data, and then the eNaira thing can roll out on it. So it's seamless. It's easy to work that way.
All right, so you know, all of this. I mean, like you say, you're simplifying the whole thing. You know, you're making it look very easy, and you know, like I'm just looking at everything on my phone as it is now, and I'm just thinking, you know, pretty much I have to a significant level of extent, you know, a cybersecurity awareness. But now I'm thinking about, you know, like you said, your mom, you know, our parents in the village, you know, people who don't have that mindset, you know, to guard their phones at all costs. How do we protect people like that?
Okay, so once you have an issue with any of the channel, maybe you make remittance, you're not seeing it on the other side. The simple thing is that the Apex Bank had made an email available, helpdesk at eNaira.com, where you can easily just send your stuff there, send your complaint there, and 48 hours will be treated. Now we know this is Nigeria. We're looking forward to when we go into the market. There will be a lot of learnings, there will be MVP versions, then there will be a lot of improvement through the process. We should also give everybody a slack and give the government a slack as they try to implement this. This is how I would perceive it to be. No matter the size of rollout they want to do now, the number of people that will be onboarding from when they start the download and the engagement on the platform, we expect a bit of itches here and there. And I also want to believe that the banks you rarely get the issue of cyber securities like we used to have back in the days. Now there have been a lot of improvement, there have been a lot of engagement, there have been a lot of strategies to curb any form of crime that is going to be committed. But you have a place where you can send an email, quickly say, oh, this thing had gone wrong, and we want a solution quickly. Another thing is using the backbone and the infrastructure of the distribution of the Nigerian banks. We want to also believe that they will be able to help in terms of supporting the Apex Bank deliver this appropriately, even to the grassroots level, because some of the places where you naturally won't be able to access, some banks are there and they have this e-wallet support system. When you walk in, they'll be able
It's going to be a collaboration.
send a mail on your behalf or reach out. Yeah, exactly. Because they are the ones who owns the backbone infrastructure for distribution. Commercial banks primarily.
Yeah, I figure. I mean, obviously, I mean that collaboration, you know, has to be in place. So, I mean, another thing that people, you know, might be thinking about is, you know, separation, you know, or the distinction between the e-currency and cryptocurrency. Can you shed more light on that?
Okay, so primarily we all understand that the cryptocurrency comes with some sort of chain, some sort of blockchain system where people can trace or are not able to say, okay, this is the account or this is what this person is doing and all of that. But on the e-wallets, every transaction is traceable. Every transaction can be pegged. It's just same way where I would quickly assume that when you have mark notes, when they say there are some notes that are marked from the bank, no matter how it circulates around, if it comes back to any bank, they're able to trace this is where this money came from. Same way the e-wallet will be operated. So when you make purchase, they're able to trace, they're able to say, okay, this is the point to move from this point to the other. But when you come to purchase of maybe Bitcoin, the blockchain technology thing, and all of the currency and all the coins, there's also the fact that people make transactions and they're not able to trace how the money goes and where it went to and all of that. But with the e-currency, you're secured at that level, you're covered. So sometimes one of the common fraud that happens these days on the internet is making purchase on websites that people can't trace the merchant that they gave the money to. But on the eNaira platform, you are able to trace anything that you've done so far. If you also go to the Bitcoin side and all the cryptocurrency side, you are not able to trace all of that efficiently. You don't have somebody monitoring. But this time around, the Apex Bank is monitoring and looking at it from a simple ledger, and they're able to say, this is how this will work, this is how this will work. And then if your transaction had gone all the while, and then you feel somebody is fraudulent on the other side, all you just need to provide is some details, and then they're able to trace what exactly happened and how it went wrong. And this will also help curb some level of corruption and all the money the people are stealing. Same way, you can use it for different kind of things in terms of monitoring. But when it comes to the cryptocurrency side, you may not be able to hold people strongly the same way you make them accountable on the eNaira. So that's just a simple explanation I can give on that.
All right, pretty much very explanatory. And also, I was just looking at now the practical terms because according to, according to what we understand, the Nigeria's GDP is going to be getting an increase of about $29 billion over the next 10 years. I mean, in practical terms, how is this going to happen?
So there's a common phenomenon around the middle age bracket now in terms of the young people. A lot of us are trying to do this thing they call, I don't want to call it the common name now, in terms of this heavy migration kind of happening within the bracket of the ages who are able to go do their masters. A lot of people are leaving, trying to get better lives for themselves in other countries. The doctors have been in the news that they're leaving and all of that. So, but something happens in that whole movement. Nigerians in diaspora are always going to be sending money home. And then you would see one of the things that the eNaira is going to cover is the place of remittance from diaspora. It's very easy for you to get your remittance here in Nigeria using the eNaira system. So that means that there will be a lot of inflow, a lot of cash flow, a lot of transactions. Some of the transactions we're not currently capturing, which is in the informal sector, especially the woman who sells tomatoes in the market, the woman who sells melons, and the man who sells fruit by the roadside. Some of these transactions are currently not being captured in some of our ledgers as a country. So bringing this to bear, the eNaira thing is going to help us put a lot of this on the table. We're able to capture this volume of transaction, and automatically then we're able to say, okay, this is the planning process. This is what our GDP is going to be like. Some of the remittance, external remittance, and all the people sending back their dollars and all of that to Nigeria is going to give us some level of increment in terms of this whole cash flow thing we're talking about that will increase our GDP on the long run. So I'm trying to make it as simple as I can so that I'm not speaking the whole economical grammars and it's a bit difficult, but this is what we're looking at. So you want to do stuffs in Nigeria, you are expecting that you're able to capture the informal sector because this informal sector
it's a good thing you mentioned the informal sector because, I was just thinking, okay, financial inclusion, so it's good. You made mention of, those who are on the streets, selling all of that. But just hold your thoughts on that. We'll take a quick break. And, of course, when we come back, we'll We'll talk more on financial inclusion, and we're also being joined by Nnaemeka Nwosu, who's joining us via Zoom to give another perspective to the discussion. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Channels Beam coming to you live from Channels Television, and our focus today is on the newly launched eNaira by the CBN, and of course, by extension, the federal government of Nigeria. And we've had Dayayeni joining us from our Abuja studio, and also Nnaemeka Nwosu, who is joining us via Zoom from Lagos. But just before we went on the break, Daya, we're talking about the informal sector, and I was talking about, financial inclusion, how this is going to ensure financial inclusion. And if you could give us a tip on how this is going to happen before we get to Nnaemeka in a bit.
Okay, so just to explain that, the informal sector has some simple gaps. So I would explain something that is very simple that must have happened to every Nigerian at some point or the other. So you go to a shop, maybe you want to buy something, and then you do a transaction of 1,000 Naira, or maybe 800 Naira, or 850. And you give them 1,000 Naira, and then they give you 100 Naira and tell you they don't have a 50 Naira change. I don't know if it happened to you before, but it happens to almost every Nigerian at some point. Now, this whole platform is just going to take care of such problem. It's easy for you to now say, okay, from my e-wallet, I'm paying you X amount. From my eNaira channel, I'm paying you just the exact amount that you need, and then I still hold my 150 Naira. So it's very easy because that happens a lot at the informal sector level. So there's a lot of money loss that happens to these people and also happen on your own side. So that's why you find the common thing that you see in Lagos, where a conductor can just give you maybe 500 Naira and tie 5 people to it and say, go and sort yourself out. So those kind of things happen in those kind of the informal places. Now for tax capture, it's also going to help in terms of government being able to track who is supposed to pay tax and who is not supposed to pay tax and all of that, and how do we capture that kind of cash flow. The place where we're trying to do transaction, you go to some low-end places. I was sometime in Lagos last year in Ekpe. I went to the market, I bought some fishes, and I could not pay them because there was no cash. I thought I would get a bank close by to just do a transfer. So they said the POS thing is there. We did the transaction, but I still had to part with some money. Now that's an informal place to do transaction, but the eNaira wallet was just going to take care of that. So the person has an eNaira wallet. I just do a transfer. The person receives the notification, sees the alert, and it's very easy. You don't need an app to do all those kind of transactions. Okay, so it's very easy. USSD, we're good.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to bring USSD, but let me just get to Nnaemeka. Looking at USSD, looking at, the eNaira, I'm trying to look at, the differences between these both, because right now with a star something hash, you can, send that amount of money. Let me just use the analogy that, Daya just used in, the past few minutes. If we're going to do that, what's the difference between the USSD transactions that we conduct on our mobile phones with with what is going to be obtainable on the like now the new ones that were just launched, the speed wallets and the merchant wallets? Nnaemeka.
Okay, thank you for having me. Sure. So I believe for the USSD, it's still pretty much tied to your bank account, and we are talking about network and of course the transaction charges, which has always been like an issue lately because I believe it has been increased. So whereas for the eNaira, it's, you have access to a wallet. So it's almost like a P2P, it's a peer-to-peer transaction. So we are talking about speed of delivery and of course it's real time. So we would most likely not have those issues whereby you might, have to initiate a USSD transaction and you have network challenges and of course those high fees, which like my counterparts mentioned, we're talking about the informal sector, and these individuals, these fees count a lot when it comes to their bottom line, their profits. But whereas the eNaira brings down, makes these transactions very affordable, very cheap, and they get, value real quickly. So these are the differences, basically. The eNaira is a digital currency which is tied to a wallet, issued by the CBN, and you get real-time value for it. Whereas for the USSD, there are too many intermediaries basically. So these intermediaries end up, hiking up the transaction fees. And of course, the other consequent challenges that might come with networks. Those are the significant differences for me.
All right. So, I mean, as it is now, it's an e-wallet. So, I mean, some places don't, apart from people being on banks, internet connectivity also is a problem, in some of the rural areas in the country. How is that going to play out?
So now this is where we're going to have a bit of a challenge, and it's something we've discussed, in our spaces, and I'm really looking forward to see how the CBN is going to move this, because we're in a country where adoption rates for technology, for tech solutions is pretty low. As regards China that probably has an over 85% adoption rate when it comes to tech. And that was why when China went, cashless, it was really, really fast, and the entire population could easily just, adopt it. We've seen how it's difficult to get customers into their mobile banking platforms, which is like an alternative to e-wallet, to the eNaira. And of course, when it comes to financial inclusion, it's been a problem. However, we've seen the inroads that mobile money POS terminals have played in, ensuring that people can access funds easily. So we are also talking about a wallet, which means you need to have a smartphone, a smart device to be able to access this solution. And for rural areas, we are hoping, the hope is that, Nigerians would, adopt this technology quickly. But to adopt that, of course, we're talking about internet access, we're talking access to smartphones, devices, and all that. So it's going to be a tricky one, and I'm keen to see how this is going to progress. But all the same, it's a brilliant, it's a brilliant outcome, and we're looking forward to how it all turns out.
All right, so let's look at the similarities. The countries that have adopted, these e-currency at this point. As it is, some of the Western countries are still yet to adopt it. Is there any reason why? So for now, we have Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, and Grenada. I also understand that China, Bahana, and Cambodia also, along that line as well. I mean, I'm surprised I'm not seeing the Western countries. What is going on?
I think for now, it's a case of trying to really understand the value of the CBDC to their economies, and we're already seeing how a lot of them are already struggling with regulatory frameworks for existing cryptocurrency platforms. So when it comes to the CBDC, the West is pretty much taking a very, very conservative approach to this. And we might say this is as a result of the existing solutions they have on ground, which they might feel is already viable for them. And of course, there is the underlying, impact of this on banks as a whole. One of the basic, value proposition of banks is to offer loans, lend to their users, to their customers. Now, with the CBDC, you're giving the CBN to deposits. And when a central authority like that has access to all these deposits, where would the banks basically get, the funds for lending to their customers? So there's a whole lot of things that needs to be trashed out. So I believe that is why the West hasn't really fully jumped on this, idea. And these are early times, really, and they will definitely come on board, because I understand that a lot of them already, they've already mandated a lot of commissions into it.
Early times, indeed. Early times, indeed, Emeka. But I have to say thank you for joining us today on the program, sharing your thoughts, on this. Of course, we'll track it and see how it goes. Like you said, it is early times, but thanks again for joining us on the program. Thanks as well to Dayo Ayeni. Thanks also to you for sharing your thoughts on this.
Thank you very much.
And of course, again, we'll keep tracking it to see, how things would unfold, say maybe in the next 1 or 2 or 3 months, and to see how people are coping with it. But again, thanks for joining us on the show and sharing your thoughts. And that's where we wrap it up on the show today. Thank you for watching. Again, the CBN has launched the eNaira platforms, and we have the eNaira Speed Wallet as well as the eNaira Merchant Wallet on the Google and Apple stores. Go and check it out for yourself and see how it goes. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Mathias.